Before you pack up and move to a quiet coastal town like Rockport, Texas, there's something that you need to know. This peaceful beach town might not be as picture perfect as it seems. Just because it looks calm and laid back doesn't mean it's completely free of crime. And if you've been doing your research, you probably come across some crime maps or online stats that have left you wondering, is this really a safe place to live? And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down what the crime actually looks like here in Rockport, how the locals feel about living here day to day, and which areas people tend to ask about most when it comes to safety. If you're new here or a returning viewer, welcome. I'm Lezli Milner, your local realtor here in Rockport, Texas, and I create weekly videos to give you real insight into what it's like to live here in the coastal bend. And if you're seriously thinking about making the move to Rockport or anywhere nearby, be sure to reach out to me because I talk to people every week who are planning their move, and I'd love to help you as well. You'll find my contact information in the description below. Now let's get into what you really need to know about safety here in Rockport. Rockport is a small coastal town here in South Texas with a population just under 10,000 people. So the crime here isn't anything like you'll see in a bigger city. However, information does spread pretty fast in Rockport, and while it is a quieter place overall, that does not mean it's completely crime-free. Most incidents tend to be property-related things like theft and break-ins or someone going through an unlocked car, and every now and then you'll hear about vandalism or an assault, but violent crime isn't something that comes up often or is a major concern for most of the full-time residents. But what is interesting is that a lot of these incidents are what we call crimes of opportunity. For example, the local police department has even posted that almost every recent vehicle burglary involved an unlocked car. So it really just comes down to staying aware and locking your things up. Burglaries and thefts have actually gone down quite a bit over the past few years in Rockport, which is great to see, but auto thefts are also pretty low as well, usually in the single digits or lower double digits for the entire year. The Rockport Police Department is also very active, and because this is a tight-knit town, people pay attention as well, whether it's through neighborhood groups, Facebook updates, or just talking with their neighbors. There's definitely a sense of local awareness that community connection really makes a big difference when it comes to staying safe and staying in the know. Also, it's important to know that this is Texas and most people have guns, so that helps lower the crime rate as well. Most people really don't want to risk getting shot for a free pair of sunglasses or perfume. For a lot of people considering a move to Rockport, I would say the biggest challenge is figuring out what it's actually like to live here, especially when you're looking from a distance. Smaller towns like Rockport don't always have a lot of detailed information online, and what you do find can sometimes leave you with more questions than answers. And I've had quite a few clients tell me they weren't really sure what to expect. Some thought it might feel a little too quiet or really didn't know if it would be safe enough for full-time living. But once they visit, their perception usually changes. They're often surprised by how calm and laid back Rockport really is. And locals will tell you that Rockport is the kind of place where people know their neighbors, and that slower pace of life here really plays a big role in how safe people feel day to day. It's not a perfect town, but there is a strong sense of community here, and that just adds another layer of comfort that you don't always find in the bigger cities. But during busy weekends or the peak tourist seasons, you're of course going to see more people in town. You're going to have more foot traffic, more cars, more short-term rental activity, and with that sometimes there is a little uptick in minor crimes place, but that's just part of living in a town that gets a lot of visitors. And yes, every now and then someone from out of town might come in and act shady, but it's not the norm here, and it's definitely not something that locals are consistently dealing with. And another perk is things like the Nextdoor app and the Facebook groups for Rockport. People are very quick to post something if something seems off, and that communication helps everyone just stay in the loop and adds to that small town awareness that you don't always get in the bigger cities. Moving on, I want to touch on the most common areas in Rockport, because when people reach out to me about moving to Rockport, one of the first things that they ask me is, what's a good neighborhood or area to live in? And most of the time, they're really asking me which areas feel the safest. So let's go over some of the neighborhoods that come up the most and talk about what you can expect in terms of safety and the overall vibe. Fulton Beach and the neighborhoods along the water are generally peaceful, but they do see a good amount of drive-by and foot traffic, so that is something to be aware of. These waterfront neighborhoods are popular with retirees and second homeowners. And on the nice days, you're gonna see people driving slowly, walking, or even pulling over to enjoy the views, which gives the area a relaxed but active feel. And while you don't really hear about major crime here, there are occasional reports of people walking around and looking at houses just a little too closely, just because it's such a visible part of town. Now, one thing to really be aware of, especially if you're looking at homes near the water, like on Water Street, for example, there is a small strip of land across the street along the water. It's actually private property, and the homeowners own that piece too. But a lot of visitors don't realize that. People will park there and get out to look around, and while you can be friendly about it, if someone gets cut on an oyster or slips on the rocks, you're gonna be the one that could be held liable. So even though it's a beautiful area, that visibility and traffic can sometimes lead to an awkward or even confrontational situations. Allegro is one of the most well-known neighborhoods here in Rockport, and if you looked into the area at all, chances are you come across the name. It's also one of the most established and higher-end communities here. This canal front neighborhood is made up of a mix of full-time residents and second homeowners, and it's definitely one of the areas that people feel more safe in. You don't really hear about crime in this part of town, and most of the homes are going to be custom built or higher value properties that are very well cared for. It has that quiet, tucked away feel, but it is still close to everything in town. The neighborhoods around Market Street, which runs through the center of town, I would say have a mix of older and newer homes. It's a very convenient area that is close to shops, restaurants, and running your daily errands, so it stays fairly active. These neighborhoods feel lived in and a bit more casual than some of the higher end areas in Rockport, but they still have that small town calmness. You're gonna hear occasionally about things like package theft, vandalism, or disturbance calls here, and from time to time there might even be some mentions of drug-related activity, usually tied to certain houses or individuals, but not the whole area. And for the most part, neighbors around here tend to be pretty watchful and communicate when something seems off. And Holiday Beach and Lamar are located a little further out from the center of Rockport and have just more a rural, laid-back feel. Lamar in particular is out near Goose Island State Park and the Big Tree, so if you visited the area, you've probably been close by without even realizing it. And these neighborhoods don't see a lot of violent crime at all. It's usually just minor stuff like theft, vandalism, or just the occasional disturbance calls. Since they are a little more remote and out of town, lighting and visibility can be a little bit lower at nighttime, time, so it's common for the homeowners here to install cameras or just extra lighting to feel a little bit more secure. But overall, people in Holiday Beach or Lamar tend to describe it as quiet, peaceful, and very low-key. And if you're looking at newer communities, Rockport has been seeing quite a bit of growth lately, and that's great for buyers who want something move-in ready, but it has brought some mixed feelings from the locals depending on how that growth is handled. Some of the main newer areas to know about are Kokomo by D.R. Horton. You have Heritage Park being built out by local builders like Cheshire Oaks, and you have Logan's Crossing, which is a new gated community by Hogan Homes. And one nice thing about Logan's Crossing is that the homes sit on half-acre lots, and they come loaded with trees, so you get a bit more space and privacy than some of these more densely built neighborhoods. Also, because it's gated, there's an added layer of security that is definitely a plus for a lot of buyers. Another major development is the Islands of Rockport. This is a gated community with higher end homes, and while more are still being built, it doesn't see a lot of foot traffic from outside visitors. Because of that, it tends to feel more quieter and more secure, and if something seems off, then someone usually speaks up and gets it handled. The long-term plan for this area includes a marina, a resort-style hotel, restaurants and bars, which really has stirred up some pushback from the longtime Rockport residents. Some are concerned that once everything is open, it could bring more traffic and possibility of more incidents to the area, especially during the peak seasons or holiday weekends. Although at this pace, it will be 5+ years, in my opinion, before we even see the completed development come to life. Overall, I would say crime isn't something you really hear about in these newer communities. Most of them are still in the early stages, with new residents slowly moving into the community, so there's a heightened sense of awareness, and people really tend to look out for each other, whether it's through the local Facebook groups or just simply chatting with their neighbors. People are usually quick to notice if something seems off. So while no area is completely immune to crime, these newer neighborhoods are the ones that I hear about most when people are searching for that mix of lifestyle, location, and peace of mind. Another thing that people ask me about when they're thinking about moving to a smaller town like Rockport is the access to emergency services. And the good news is that you're covered. Rockport does have its own local police department, fire station, and EMS, so you don't have to rely on another city for basic response. Response times are typically quick, especially since the town isn't that huge and most neighborhoods are within reasonable distance of each other. Also, if a more serious medical issue ever comes up, you're not too far from Corpus Christi. It's about 45 to 50 minutes away, depending on where you're at in town and the traffic. And that gives you access to the larger hospitals, more specialty care, and additional resources if needed. So is Rockport safe? Well, for most people, yes. It's a laid-back coastal town with a strong sense of community, but while no place is completely free of crime, most people here feel comfortable day to day. Whether you're walking the dog, heading to the beach, or chatting with your neighbors, there is a real sense of ease in how people live here. And that said, just like anywhere, it's always a good idea to take simple precautions. Lock your doors, don't leave valuables in your car, and just stay connected with your community and your neighbors. Those little things really go a long way in keeping any neighborhood safe. If you're considering a move to Rockport and you want help figuring out which area makes the most sense for your lifestyle, I would love to help you out. You'll find my contact information in the description below, and be sure to check out my other Rockport videos if you want to learn more about what it's like to live here.